Well, to talk more about how music content and the industry at large is evolving amid the pandemic, I'm joined by Serona Elton. She's a professor and director of the Music Business and Entertainment Industries program at the University of Miami Frost School of Music. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So as we look at other industries, we saw that blockbuster movie releases were postponed this year, several fall TV show releases also delayed. How is the music industry doing in terms of content creation and releases?
Well, in the independent artist segment, content is up. In fact, there are record numbers of new music being released by independent artists through different digital service platforms. So what you're seeing is artists that are stuck at home who have the technological tools to do it at home are creating more music than ever. In fact, sales of gear and equipment and musical instruments are up, all also showing how home creation has been doing really well right now.
So how are consumers responding, especially during this pandemic? What trends are you seeing in terms of sales and streaming?
So overall, sales and streaming is up. The year started off really strongly. It did set back a bit from that in March, but where we've landed at now, comparing the first half of this year to last year, is we're still up overall. Revenue is up, consumption, the number of streams happening, that is all up. And so things are still doing really well. They probably would be better. They would definitely be better had they not slowed down since March. But overall, things are looking very positive in terms of content consumption.
Now, even before the pandemic, we saw some big artists having these drops without any sort of promotion at all. But if you're a smaller artist, you're not going to get the same sort of splash. How has the promotion process changed during this time?
Well, I think what's happening is that artists are having more time to connect with their fans. So you see an even greater use of social media. You see a lot more, live events, Facebook Live type events, Instagram events, where, top artists and middle tier artists are not busy on planes flying all over the place. They actually are home and have the time to get on these platforms and connect with their fans more. So I would say, the use of social media and live events, not just performances, but live, follow me into my kitchen type social media events are definitely helping artists stay connected to fans and promote their music today.
Now, that's certainly helpful because not every performer has a Beyonce-sized budget. So how are artists handling the production and rollout of some of the visual elements, really making them stand out when it comes to things like videos and photos during quarantine?
Well, that ranges a lot depending on what kind of budget you do have. I think artists are learning more about tools that are out there that are pretty affordable and that they can do themselves. So, they don't have the opportunity with, quarantine to go to a studio somewhere where somebody can actually make the video of them. It's more likely that they're doing it on their phones or their devices at home, using different tools that are out there that don't cost a lot of money to try and edit things and make them interesting. I think on the whole, consumers are much more willing to check out something that's cool or funny or interesting without expecting big budget production these days, understanding that that's just not going to be happening for a while.
So certainly amended expectations somewhat. Now, for people who are unable to go out to concerts or parties, we saw the comeback of the traditional DJ with innovations like D-Nice's Club Quarantine, DJing from his home. Now, Versus, we also saw where these two artists will face off with their greatest work remotely. Talk about the excitement and the success of this.
It is so much fun. It's just a ridiculous amount of fun, and it's really what everybody needs right now. In terms of the club, it's amazing the different guests that have been on D-Nice's, night, his club. If you think about Michelle Obama, you think about Oprah, you think about John Legend, you think about these folks who, when was the last time you think Oprah went out to a nightclub? I mean, really, so it's giving people something to enjoy that they can do at home and yet still feel connected to other people. And it's bringing in a whole group of people who never would have gone out to the club when we were doing those kinds of things. I think the Versus stuff is just amazing to watch these iconic artists, singing verses out of their top hits. It's just so much fun, and it gives you somebody to root for. Sports really was put on hold for quite a while, and Versus gives you, you can decide whose team you're on, who you want to cheer for. So it's this intersection of, being for something and enjoying the music.
So then with this more intimate look that we now have, do you think the virtual performance model will last longer term, considering the revenue that you get from one huge show versus multiple in-person concerts that have things like merchandise, food, and beverage sales to consider?
Well, that is the big question everybody's wondering is, what does this look like a year from now, 2 years from now? I think you will see live concerts return. The question is when and how big? And is there now this opportunity to really engage the virtual show in a way that you never did before? When artists tour, they obviously pick the cities where they have the most fans, but there's always a large amount of their fan base who doesn't live in those cities and who is just not going to travel to those cities to enjoy the concert. Now I think people are much more willing to say, hey, I'm willing to do this in my house, or I'm willing to maybe go somewhere local with a couple of friends and enjoy this concert and pay for it, because the other alternative was never to see it at all. So what the economics of that will turn out to be, how much people are willing to spend for a virtual concert experience, that probably has a lot to do with, how rarely that artist performs live and the production quality, things like that. I think there's still a lot of questions. But what makes me really excited is I think fans who might have thought they could never enjoy a virtual event have realized actually you can.